to function around in that world. You know, I was thinking about this because William Lane Craig once discussed this on Reasonable Faith podcast, and I think it's obviously just a speculation, and he said it was speculation. He's not like teaching this; he's just throwing out a possibility to knock down the fears, I guess, the claim that it can possibly be this way. But he's just like, I don't know, but that because God does want us to be embodied, but perhaps as when our souls are disembodied, perhaps we have something that is akin to a virtual reality sort of experience, where we do have something like a physical interaction with what seems like a physical world, but it's something that God is allowing for us to experience that normally without a body we wouldn't be able to experience this. And it's not the best. It's not what God ultimately wants. He wants us to be in bodies. He wants souls and bodies to be one thing for the reasons that I've already discussed. Another thing is, while I do think there are perceptions people have, people talk about being able to see things, like in generally blind patients seeing things when they're in their near-death experience, coming back and describing things they saw, that sort of thing. Is certainly there. So I think there are some perceptions that the soul has some of these abilities. Memories seem to be there. That sort of thing seems to be really going on with these near-death experiences, and of course to make sense of the other data that I think I put forth. But when we're talking about what are all of the soul's capabilities, I don't know. I don't know. I think there are limitations there. That when you're in your physical body and it's in its perfect state, like will be after the physical resurrection, then you won't have a lot of those limitations. There'll be some limitations still, but there won't be those problematic limitations that are the result of where damage has been done to the ideal design. So I just don't know why what the problem is supposed to be. The goal is ultimately that we have physical bodies and souls and exist something like that. Now, I mean,
the point is that he's saying both that damage to the wetware, right? That damage to the physical stuff changes what happens in the souly stuff, but also that the souly stuff is capable on its own of experiencing without the damage, as in the case of
exactly.
And it does
damage to the brain. Damage to the brain inhibits the ability for the soul of it to interact with it. But at the same time, the brain functioning normally also inhibits the ability of the soul, because that's what the NDE point is about, right? He's saying that without the body, now the soul can do extra stuff.
It inhibits it normally. It has to inhibit it in just the right way.
It's just so ad hoc, which is sort of my point. Also notice that now he's saying, well, Craig has speculated that without a body, the soul has kind of virtual reality experiences. And also Braxton just said that he doesn't know what properties or causal powers that the soul has. Now, here's my question. Let's take our circle of things that we need to explain. Why don't you need to give answers to? Why doesn't Braxton need to give answers to these things? If I, a physicalist, say, I don't know how the brain gives rise to conscious experiences, Braxton's going to say, aha. Well, literally, that's the point of his presentation. That's a problem for naturalism, because you can't explain this. You also can't explain personal identity over time. These are two of the big things. But then I ask Braxton, how do souls work? What causal powers do they have? What can they experience without minds? Do animals have souls? I ask all these questions, and Braxton says, well, maybe this, maybe that, but ultimately I don't know. Why is that okay for Braxton to say about his soul theory or dualism, but it's not okay for the naturalists to say their things? Why are some things in the circle of things that need explanation, but other things aren't in them? It seems to me that Braxton puts things in the circle of things that really need explanation, that are convenient for his worldview, and anything that is inconvenient, that he doesn't have answers to, or that seem quite difficult to give answers to, he removes and says, well, look, it's okay, we don't need an answer for this. And he uses this strategy repeatedly. I think this is entirely unsatisfactory. If you want to give an abductive inference to the best explanation argument, you need to provide an explanation that is explanatorily superior. You cannot do that by just arbitrarily removing things from the set of the facts that we're trying to explain, including all of the parts of how your explanation works. The physicalist wouldn't get by just saying, well, I don't know, but some people think this, some people think that, but I'm not sure. If that's not okay for the physicalist to say about these things, why is it okay for the interactionist dualist to say those things? That's a question I'd really like to hear what Braxton has to say about.
I think it's worth mentioning as well on the point of the analyzability of interactionism, that if Braxton, for example, were to say something like, well, when the soul interacts with the mind, like it's primitive, or it just is the case, like it's like a brute fact that it just does interact in that way every time that it does. Well, then you could just do the same for some kind of like physical reductionism, right? You could just say, well, these neurons firing just are, right? And then you've basically got the same kind of
same point that I made before.
Yeah.
Any brute fact can be introduced as a brute fact to give rise to consciousness or quality or whatever you want.
Yeah.
For the physical fact, yes, exactly.